Dus para ceann corp bhánam a rálat a mohan finnegus a sanna party nullig fé héanagus bheis tú héanagus de buil an tí agus gacéine tá gobar anseo tá mé gur fear victíomhas a socht an méid dhéanaan siad ar orson so nullig fé hén tú héanagus tú hén tánaiste mar éon tásúla gom go bhfuil tú ag súil leis an nullag agus an fíisih sosbeag a bheith ag tacht. Could I put it to you, Tánaiste, the issue I want to raise this morning, after giving you the season's greetings and hoping that you will have an enjoyable and restful and peaceful Christmas, which I think you probably need, like us all. But I want to raise a very serious issue, and it relates to people with disabilities. And I think it's fair to say that if you look back on 2012, what has emerged is a year that witnessed a significant attack on services for people with disabilities, with cuts across the board, a lot of fear and anxiety developing amongst parents and families with people with special needs and with disabilities. A sustained attack, fear and frustration. And for example, 700 school leavers, no guarantees in terms of getting a place, and many still not satisfactorily resolved. Cuts to special need assistance across the country, a 15% cut to resource teaching hours, a very ruthless review of the domiciliary care allowance, with up to 63% of all applications rejected in the first 6 months of 2012, and 50% of children with autism refused a domiciliary care allowance. And the government being forced last year into a review of cuts that it had announced to disability payments. And of course we had Minister James Riley's debacle in August, where he cut 10 million from personal assistance, and people had to camp out overnight to get that cut reversed. We had the further slash and burn cut of 1 million home help hours, which again affected people with disabilities. And this, of course, followed in this budget by a callous 20% cut in the respite care grant. And we've also noticed on this side of the House terribly tightening of the screw in terms of medical cards, particularly for children with special needs and children with life-challenging conditions, who are now being refused medical cards. And Tánaiste, the picture that, when one looks at the whole year, is one of targeting, it appears to us, and to the people involved, and to the sector, of people with disabilities. A removal of any sense of guarantee or comfort. And what I want to ask you is, in the context of 2013, and acknowledging the difficulty of the finances, that there should be a resolve to protect people with special needs and with disabilities in our society. And I know that Minister Kathleen Lynch, at the time of the announcement of the estimates, was not in a position to guarantee that there would not be any more cutbacks in 2013 for the disability sector. And I think she said that. The Health Service, the HSE service plan is due to be published. And I want to ask you, Tánaiste, can you guarantee us that there will not be cuts to people with disabilities and to people with special needs, and in particular that there will be a guarantee of places for those who leave second-level school in 2013?
Well, dús bhhailm aonú leis an Micheál Martin agus is tócha le chuile teachta sa dáil agus nulla chuna brunna ar péin a cheann chomhairle agus ar gachbáil gan teach agus chuile a oibríonn anseo I deach lein. I'd like to join with Deputy Martin and first of all wishing you, ceann chomhairle, a happy Christmas, and all the leaders of the parties here, all the members of the House, the staff of the House, those who work here in the press, and in servicing the work of Leinster House, and indeed those who work for us in our political parties and in our own offices. And I have no doubt we've had a pretty, I think, intense period of time since the Dáil resumed in early September, and I think everybody has agreed that a period of rest and reflection is due to everybody in the House. Can I say first of all that can I say that there is quite a degree of fear and worry among people with disabilities and among those who care for them and who are close to them. And I think it is a responsibility for all of us to ensure that sense of fear and worry is not added to. And therefore, I think that when we are addressing the issue of the services that are provided for people with disabilities, that we should do so in a reasoned way. And I don't think that any member of the House should seek to exploit any issue in relation to disabilities, and that we should work collectively to address their needs. There is, for example, Deputy Martin raised a number of issues. The total amount in the Department of Health alone, which is budgeted for disabilities, I think about €1.4 billion. You referred to the issue of medical cards. There are currently 42% of the population now on medical cards, in addition to those who are in addition to GP cards. There are, in relation to the places that in education, the 700 that Deputy Martin has referred to who leave the system. They have been, as I understand it, they have been accommodated. There has not been any reduction in the payments, the basic payments which are made for people with disabilities, or indeed for those who care for them. I do agree that I think it should be a priority for all of us that provision is made for people with disabilities. The service plan for the HSE, there is a requirement that the service plan is produced, I think it's within 21 days of the estimates being announced. It's to be with the Minister. That process is being worked upon at the moment, and then there's a period of 21 days within which the service plan has to be agreed, and that will be worked on over the next number of weeks. And I think you can take it, Deputy Martin, that as far as this government is concerned, the provision for people with disabilities and for those who care for them is certainly a priority.
Thank you, Deputy Martin.
Tánaiste, I think the key issue in relation to the service plan is, will it include a cut in resources to service providers? And that's the key issue, because they're in the belief that it may. And they've been very clear that they can take no more. Now, the demographic funding that was provided for school leavers was removed last year in its entirety. And not all of the school leavers were adequately dealt with. And I've had a case which I raised here in the House, albeit a very complex case, of a young child who still is awaiting adequate provision and proper provision by the Department of Health and by the HSE. And the case has reached the Minister's concerned, and I gave it to the Taoiseach as well. And the reason why that child has not been accommodated properly is because the funding has been removed. And I've spoken to the HSE officials about this. They're at the end of their tether. So that's just an example of the inadequacy of how school leavers were dealt with last year. Now, the programme for government states, and it's very clear, that the government will ensure, and I quote, that the quality of life of people with disabilities will be enhanced, and that resources allocated will reach to people who need them, and will facilitate a greater level of participation in employment, training and education. Now, that did not happen in 2012, Tánaiste. The opposite happened in terms of people with disabilities and with special needs, right across the areas that I outlined in my opening contribution. And particularly if you look at the domiciliary care allowance, it is a ruthless review. And many parents of children with autism, for example, cannot understand how they're failing to get the domiciliary care allowance. Half of them are being refused the domiciliary care allowance. And the review, 63% of all overall applications ruled out. So the key question is, in the service plan, can you guarantee that there will not be a cut to the funding that would be provided to the service providers? And can you guarantee the parents of the 700 children who will be leaving second level of school in 2013, next September, that they will all have a place, and that the funding will be provided to the service providers to ensure the right kind of place and the appropriate placement for those children and young people?
Well, first of all, the service plan is not completed yet. As I've indicated, there is a process by which the service plan is developed. First part of that is the preparation of the service plan by the HSE and submitted to the Minister. And then there is the period of time which the Minister has to consider the service plan. So in advance of seeing the service plan, I don't think that any of us can speculate about what is going to be in it. But I think what we can do, and what I do agree with, is that the needs of people with disability have to be adequately provided for. And certainly it is the view and the priority of the Minister for Health and Minister Lynch, who has particular responsibility for people with disabilities, that should be done. I think that one of the ways in which that is done is to ensure that there is planning ahead, and that's one of the things that is now being done. It wasn't done in the past. It is possible to plan ahead, to anticipate what the needs will be, what the educational needs will be, what the training needs will be, what the needs will be at different stages as somebody with disability needs to access services. And that's the approach that Minister Lynch is taking, is to ensure that there is a plan, that it is worked on ahead, and that it is not being operated just on a year-to-year basis. And I think by doing that as well, I think that we provide certainty for people with disabilities and for their families that their needs are going to be addressed.